In the tranquil English countryside, far from the bustling heart of London, a grand old manor house stood, its stone façade weathered by centuries of British rain and sun. This was the place where Mr. Alistair Finch, a man of considerable wealth and influence, chose to escape the city's incessant demands. He would vanish for days, seeking solace in its silent halls, leaving his wife, Eleanor Finch, in their opulent Mayfair townhouse. Eleanor, a woman of impeccable taste and a pillar of London society, often found herself alone. Their marriage, a testament to success on the surface, was riddled with a silent, growing chasm. 6 years prior, the mysterious disappearance of Eleanor's dearest friend, Lydia Shaw, had cast a long shadow over their lives. Alistair, once attentive and charming, had become distant, his politeness a mask for an icy detachment. The old manor, an imposing 3-story structure draped in ivy, became the embodiment of this rift. Alistair had acquired it 3 years ago, a unilateral decision he justified as a need for a quiet retreat. But for Eleanor, it was a source of constant unease. He forbade her from visiting, his warnings veiled in an unsettling sternness. "Eleanor, it's my private space. Don't go there. It won't do you any good." "Private space?" she'd scoffed inwardly. What could a husband possibly need to hide from his wife? The regularity of his visits only fueled her suspicions. Every month or two, he'd drive out, returning with the faint scent of damp earth and old wood, a peculiar weariness in his eyes, and a fleeting sense of emptiness after what she could only describe as satisfaction. Was there another woman? A secret vice? The questions gnawed at her, stealing her sleep. Alistair's unexpected 7-day business trip to Geneva presented Eleanor with an opportunity she couldn't ignore. Dressed in a pristine Chanel suit, a flawless smile masking her turmoil, she waved him off at Heathrow. As his silhouette disappeared through security, her heart pounded. 3 years of suppressed curiosity and doubt surged through her. "Alistair," she called, her voice barely a whisper. He turned, a slight smile on his lips. "Yes, Eleanor? If anything happens, call Mrs. Davies, the housekeeper, or me directly." His smile was impenetrable, yet she caught a flicker of something akin to caution in his deep-set eyes. "Nothing, darling. Just be safe and come back soon." She reached up, gently straightening his already immaculate tie, her fingers trembling almost imperceptibly. "Of course." He patted her arm, turned, and walked away without a backward glance. The moment he was out of sight, Eleanor's smile vanished. From her Hermès handbag, she produced a cold brass key. It was the key to the manor, found hidden in a locked drawer in his study the previous day, while he was showering. Along with it were old photographs of the house, its very concealment suggesting something far from ordinary. The drive out of London was a blur. The city's sprawl gave way to rolling hills and quaint villages. Her heart tightened with a mixture of apprehension and grim determination. "Alistair Finch, if you've hidden someone there or done anything to betray me, I, Eleanor Finch, will make you pay. I am not some helpless ornament. I will not tolerate deceit." The next morning, dressed in smart trousers and driving her discreet Porsche, Eleanor headed for the countryside. The manor stood at the end of an overgrown lane, looking even more dilapidated than in the photographs. 3 stories high, its walls were covered in withered vines, like a silent, monstrous sentinel beneath the gray English sky. She took a deep breath, clutching the key, her palms slick with sweat. The iron gate creaked open, its protest echoing eerily in the stillness. The expansive garden was a wilderness, weeds reaching her knees. The heavy oak front door was secured with a sturdy new padlock. This was it. Her heart hammered as she inserted the brass key. A soft click, and the door swung open, releasing a stale gust of dust, mildew, and a faint, indescribable scent of disinfectant. The interior was dim, thick curtains drawn against the light. Furniture draped in white sheets resembled silent specters. Her phone's torch beam cut through the gloom as she stepped inside, the floorboards groaning beneath her weight. The ground floor, drawing room, dining room, kitchen, appeared unremarkable, save for the pervasive dust and emptiness. But her intuition screamed that the secret lay elsewhere. Her gaze fell on the staircase, leading to the first floor, and a small, unassuming door beside it, looking like a storage cupboard. She tried the handle. It was locked. But the brass key worked again, opening it effortlessly. Behind the door wasn't a cupboard, but a narrow flight of concrete steps descending into darkness. A basement. Her stomach lurched. All her worst fears coalesced. His true secret was down here. The steps were steep, and a cold, damp air, thick with a stronger smell of mildew and a faint, acrid tang like spoiled food, wafted up. She descended cautiously, her phone's beam dancing across the mottled walls. At the bottom, amidst old furniture and forgotten clutter, stood a heavy iron door, clearly a recent addition. It was secured not only with a massive padlock, but also an electronic keypad. A keypad in a country manor's basement? Her blood ran cold. What could be imprisoned behind such elaborate security? She pressed her ear against the cold metal, listening. Silence. Just as she began to doubt herself, a faint scraping sound, like metal chains dragging across a floor, echoed from within. Someone was inside. Her scalp prickled. Fear and rage surged through her. Alistair, you bastard, you've illegally imprisoned someone. Anger overriding fear, she pounded on the door. Is anyone there? Who are you? Answer me. The chain sound ceased, replaced by a whimpering, a retreat, like a wounded animal. Don't be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Her voice trembled with emotion. She tried the keypad, inputting dates: Alistair's birthday, hers, their anniversary, but only received a cold error beep. Time ticked by. Alistair was away for 7 days. It was only day 2. She had time, but the unknown life behind the door spurred her on. Leaning against the door, she forced herself to think. What code would be significant to Alistair, yet not easily guessed? A 6-year-old memory, long buried, resurfaced. Lydia Shaw's birthday. Lydia, her best friend since university, had been close to both of them. Alistair had even expressed interest in Lydia before pursuing Eleanor. Lydia's disappearance had haunted Eleanor. Could it be? The thought was monstrous, but her fingers, seemingly with a will of their own, trembled as she entered the date. A long beep. A green light. Correct. Eleanor's mind went blank. Why Lydia's birthday? What did it mean? The padlock sprang open. With trembling hands, she removed it and pushed open the heavy iron door. Her phone's light revealed a small, windowless room, perhaps 10 feet square, rough concrete walls. In a corner, a simple iron bed on which a figure lay curled, a mere skeleton draped in rags. Matted, tangled hair, filthy, tattered clothes, pale, scarred skin, a heavy iron chain locked around an ankle, secured to a ring in the wall. The figure flinched from the light, whimpering, shrinking into the corner. Eleanor fought back a surge of nausea, stepping closer. The light illuminated the face, though emaciated and caked in grime. The wide, terrified eyes, even in their horror, were unmistakably familiar. A poisoned dagger piercing her heart. "Lydia," she whispered, her voice a raw, disbelieving cry. "Is that you? Lydia Shaw?" The figure froze, as if struck by lightning. It stopped cringing, slowly lifting its head. Turbid eyes struggling to focus, to discern Eleanor's face. After a few agonizing seconds, recognition replaced terror, shock, bewilderment, profound humiliation. Then, tears. Parched lips trembled. A voice barely audible, yet thunderous in Eleanor's ears, cracked. Eleanor. Her world shattered. Her best friend, presumed dead for 6 years, the woman she'd mourned, was here, in her perfect husband's basement, chained like an animal. 6 years. She was numb with shock. Her phone slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor, its light casting grotesque, distorted shadows on the low ceiling. "Eleanor, run! He's not human! He's coming back! Alistair!" Lydia's fragmented pleas ripped through the silence. Eleanor snapped awake, lunging to grab Lydia's skeletal arm. It was icy cold. "He's abroad." "Lydia! 7 days! What happened? Why are you here? Why did he do this?" Lydia shook her head violently. terror pouring from her eyes. It's all a lie. He didn't get on the plane. He always pretends to go away. Then he comes here, to watch me, to torture me. Her words were ice picks, stabbing into Eleanor's heart. He knew you'd come, Eleanor. This is a trap. As if on cue, a heavy clang echoed from the top of the basement stairs, the iron door closing and locking. A second later, a voice, intimately familiar, yet now a devil's whisper, drifted down, laced with cruel satisfaction. Eleanor, still so disobedient. I told you, you shouldn't have come here. Alistair stood at the top of the stairs, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, a cold, predatory smile on his face, looking down at them. Time seemed to stretch. His voice, a frigid serpent, coiled down the damp steps, slithering into Eleanor's ears, choking her heart. Her blood froze, her limbs stiffened. She couldn't breathe. He repeated his words, softly, yet with immense pressure. Eleanor reeled from the shock, her first instinct to retreat, to shield Lydia. Alistair, her voice trembled with fear and rage. You monstrous beast, what have you done to her? He chuckled. What have I done to her? Eleanor, you should ask what she did to me. Or, rather, what you both did to me. He reached the bottom, his handsome face illuminated by Eleanor's phone light, now a demonic mask. He was dressed as if returning from a crucial business meeting, not from a 6-year-long dungeon. You didn't get on the plane? Eleanor accused, her nails digging into her palms, using the pain to maintain composure. Of course not, he shrugged. I just needed to give you an undisturbed window. I knew you'd waited 3 years. Eleanor, I know you as well as I know myself. Your curiosity, your unease. I saw it all. He surveyed the grim basement with a chilling satisfaction. It's simple, but quiet. Perfect for a chat. His gaze, cold as a scalpel, settled on Lydia, who cringed and whimpered. Don't look at her, Eleanor snarled, her chest heaving. Alistair, tell me, what is this? Why have you kept Lydia here for 6 years? What did she do to you? Do to me, he laughed, a bitter, angry sound echoing in the confined space. Eleanor, you're adorably naive. You still think this is just about doing something? He took a step closer. Stop, don't come any closer. Eleanor tensed. He halted, his smile widening into a mocking sneer. Relax, Eleanor. I'm not here to hurt you. Not yet, at least. I'm just here to tell you a story you've both conveniently forgotten. About 6 years ago, the night that changed everything for us. Eleanor remembered that night well. A celebratory dinner for her promotion. Lydia had felt unwell and left early. Then, vanished. What happened that night? She rasped. That night, Alistair mused, lost in a chilling reverie. You were both so happy. Especially you, Eleanor. Promoted, a brilliant future. But Lydia, he snapped his gaze to Lydia, his voice rising. She was consumed with envy, wasn't she? Despite appearances, she hated your success, didn't she, Lydia? Lydia whimpered, shrinking further. You're lying, Eleanor retorted. Lydia isn't like that. She's my best friend. Best friend? He roared with bitter laughter. Eleanor, wake up. Your best friend found me that night, after you'd had too much to drink. She told me she loved me. Always had. She said she understood me better than you. Was better for me. She even tried to seduce me. Impossible! Eleanor shrieked. Lydia would never. No? He sneered. Did you know she once secretly leaked project details to your company's rival just because it was your project? She didn't want to see you succeed. She made it look like an accident. Framed an innocent junior employee. Eleanor was stunned. 6 years ago, a major project leak had indeed rocked her company, blamed on a low-level worker. She'd never once suspected Lydia. You're lying, she insisted, her faith shaken. Lying? Alistair advanced. That night, she confessed everything. When I rejected her, she threatened to expose my past secrets if I didn't leave you. We argued fiercely, in that underground car park. He paused, his gaze fixed on Lydia, brimming with hatred. Then what? Eleanor pressed, her heart thudding. Then, Alistair inhaled deeply. An accident happened. She fell, hit her head. I checked her pulse. She was unconscious, but alive. I thought about taking her to the hospital. But then, I realized, if she woke up, she'd blackmail me, ruin my career, destroy our life. I couldn't let her. So you brought her here, imprisoned her for 6 years. Eleanor stared in horror. This is illegal detention. It's a crime. Crime? Alistair's face twisted. She threatened me. She wanted to destroy everything. I did this to protect you, to protect our home. Eleanor, for 6 years I've lived in torment. But knowing she was here, unable to hurt you, unable to threaten me, made it all worth it. I even took care of her. She's still alive, isn't she? Care? Eleanor gestured at the heavy chain, at the squalor, trembling with rage. You call this care, Alistair? You're insane. I am insane, he bellowed. You both drove me to it. Her greed, your naivety. This bitch, he pointed at Lydia, professed to be your friend, but plotted to steal everything you had. And you, my dear wife, for all these years, you harbored this person who almost ruined us. You never truly trusted me. You always suspected me. Otherwise, why are you here now? His accusations were daggers, piercing her. She had suspected him, yes, but because of his bizarre behavior, not because of lingering thoughts of Lydia. That's enough, Eleanor cut him off. Whatever she did, it doesn't give you the right to illegally detain and torture her for 6 years. This is 2 different things. You're using this to justify your twisted control and your crimes. Release us. We're going to the police. Police? Alistair laughed, a chilling, humorless sound. He slowly drew something from his inner jacket pocket, a gleaming penknife. It glinted ominously in the phone's beam. Eleanor's breath hitched. Eleanor, you're too naive, he said, toying with the knife, his voice calm, yet lethally menacing. At this point, do you really think I'll let you leave? Let you call the police, ruin everything I've painstakingly built? He advanced, his eyes filled with undisguised murderous intent. If you had simply listened, stayed away, we could have continued our enviable life as husband and wife. But you chose another path. Eleanor retreated, shielding Lydia, until her back hit the cold wall. Nowhere to go. Terror consumed her. He was going to kill them both. Here, in this isolated basement, and with his connections, he could easily make them disappear without a trace. Alistair, calm down, she pleaded. Murder is a serious crime. You won't get away with it. Stop now while you still can. He smiled, a cruel, desperate smile. From that night 6 years ago, I was already past the point of no return. He raised the knife, its tip aimed at her. Just then, Lydia, who had been huddled behind Eleanor, trembling, let out a weak but clear gasp. He's lying. Both Eleanor and Alistair turned to her. Lydia, her face streaked with tears and grime, slowly lifted her head. Her eyes, though still hazy, burned with a furious, 6-year-old hatred. Eleanor, don't believe him. She choked out, each word a struggle. That night, I didn't seduce him. I didn't threaten him. Her weak voice, though barely a whisper, was a hammer blow, shattering Alistair's web of lies. Alistair's face contorted in rage. Lydia Shaw, shut up. But Lydia, as if embracing death, stared directly at Alistair, her eyes like poisoned daggers. That night, I saw him. He was with another man in the car park, making an illegal deal. I heard them mention blood money and lives. Lydia's words were a bomb. Illegal deals, blood money, lives. Alistair wasn't just an illegal kidnapper. He was involved in something far darker. Alistair's face twisted completely, a primal fury replacing his composure. He lunged at Lydia like a wild beast. You lying bitch, I'll kill you. The knife flashed, aimed at Lydia's chest. No, Eleanor screamed, reacting without thought, throwing herself at Alistair, slamming into his side with all her might. Her scream and her body launched simultaneously. Terror had transformed into primal protectiveness and fury. She would not let Lydia die. Her shoulder slammed into Alistair's side. He hadn't expected her strength. He stumbled, the knife missing Lydia's chest, instead tearing a gash in the filthy bedsheet and grazing Lydia's arm, drawing blood. Lydia let out a cry of pain. Bitch, you dare? Alistair regained his footing, his face contorted in a murderous rage. He abandoned Lydia, focusing his fury on Eleanor. The knife glinted, aimed directly at her. Eleanor rolled, dodging the fatal blow, the cold rush of air past her ear raising goosebumps. She scrambled up, overturning a makeshift wooden crate. "Eleanor, watch out!" Lydia's hoarse warning echoed from behind. The basement was small, cluttered. Eleanor, unarmed, was no match for Alistair's size and weapon. She scanned the scattered items: empty water bottles, moldy biscuit wrappers, and half a rough-edged brick used to hold down a leaky bucket. As Alistair lunged again, she grabbed the brick and hurled it with all her might. It struck his forearm with a dull thud. He cried out, the knife nearly slipping from his grasp. He faltered for a second. "Now!" Eleanor bolted for the stairs. She had to escape. Call the police. That was their only hope. "Running, are we?" Alistair roared, recovering quickly, chasing after her. His footsteps drummed like a death knell. The stairs were narrow and steep. Eleanor scrambled up, half climbing, half crawling. Alistair's hand grabbed her ankle. "Get back here!" he snarled, pulling. Eleanor lost her balance, screaming as she fell. Desperately, she clutched the wooden banister, her body dangling, her lower half held fast by Alistair. "Let me go, Alistair, you maniac!" she screamed, kicking wildly. "Let you go? So you can call the police? Ruin everything? Dream on!" Alistair's face was distorted with effort. With one hand pulling her, the other raised the knife, aiming for her thigh. He wanted to incapacitate her, not kill her outright. At that critical moment, a guttural shriek, filled with 6 years of humiliation and hatred, erupted from below. It was Lydia. She had found a surge of strength, perhaps from sheer will, or from a consuming hatred for Alistair. Dragging her heavy chain, she had rolled off the bed and lunged at Alistair's leg, biting down hard on his calf. Alistair let out a blood-curdling scream, releasing Eleanor. He instinctively kicked at Lydia. "Let go, you mad woman! Let go!" Eleanor scrambled up the remaining steps, out of his immediate reach. She turned, a horrifying sight before her. Alistair, completely enraged, had abandoned her, unleashing his violence on Lydia. He kicked at her head and body, spewing obscenities. Lydia, like a broken doll, was battered, yet she clung to his leg, refusing to release her bite. Blood oozed from her mouth and Alistair's trousers. "Leave her alone, you beast!" Eleanor cried, wanting to intervene. But reason held her back. To go down would be suicide. Her only chance was to escape. "Eleanor, go! Call the police!" Lydia's bloodied face turned to her, her eyes pleading, a final, desperate plea. Eleanor's tears streamed, her heart twisting, but she had no time to hesitate. She turned and sprinted up the stairs, throwing herself against the heavy iron door. It wouldn't budge. It was locked from the outside. Alistair had locked it when he came down. Despair, cold as ice, washed over her, freezing her limbs. Her escape route was cut off. Alistair stopped kicking, a low, terrifying chuckle rising from his throat. He looked down at Lydia, who was still biting his leg, but clearly losing strength. "Run! Why aren't you running?" he mocked, watching Eleanor's futile attempts to open the door. "I forgot to tell you, this door is specially made. It can't be opened from the inside. And it's soundproof. Even if you scream yourself hoarse, no one outside will hear." He violently shook his leg, throwing the barely conscious Lydia against the wall. She slumped to the floor, motionless. "Lydia!" Eleanor screamed, scrambling down the stairs, collapsing beside her friend. She fumbled for a pulse, faint, but there. Lydia was alive. But Alistair was advancing, his injured leg and arm doing little to impede his bloodlust. The knife in his hand was still dripping blood. "Such touching sisterly devotion," he sneered, his eyes like a serpent's, darting between them. "Since you're so fond of each other, I'll send you on your way together. You'll have company on the road to hell." He raised the knife, aiming for Eleanor's heart. With her escape cut off, Lydia barely conscious, and Eleanor herself utterly exhausted, facing the man who had been her husband, now a homicidal fiend, a strange calm settled over her. She couldn't die here. Lydia couldn't die here. The truth had to escape this hell. Her mind raced. Her phone! Where had it fallen? near the door, when she'd pushed it open. If she didn't have her phone, her last hope of rescue was gone. Her eyes darted across the floor. In the shadows beneath the iron door, she saw it. Her phone, screen cracked, but the torch still on. A faint light, but her only hope. But Alistair blocked her path. Looking for this? He nudged the phone with his foot, sneering. Don't bother. The signal is completely blocked here. You won't get a signal. Signal blocked. Her heart plummeted. Alistair, what do you want? She asked, trying to buy time, subtly shifting to shield Lydia further, her other hand groping behind her for anything she could use as a weapon. What do I want? He paused, relishing the power. I gave you a chance, Eleanor. If you had just listened, we could have remained husband and wife. But now you know things you shouldn't, seen things you shouldn't. His gaze swept over the unconscious Lydia. So, regrettably, you must both disappear. His voice was as calm as if ordering dinner. However, for old time's sake, I can make your death quick. Or, a twisted glint entered his eyes. You could choose to stay, like her. After all, it does get a bit lonely down here sometimes. A wave of nausea washed over Eleanor. This madman, he'd not only imprisoned Lydia for 6 years, he now intended to make Eleanor his captive too. Dream on, she spat, forcing herself to sound calm. You won't get away with this, Alistair. I told my friend I was coming here. If I disappear, the police will come straight for you. A lie. No one knew. But she had to gamble. Alistair's brow furrowed, then smoothed into an even more chilling smile. Eleanor, you still don't understand me. If I dare do this, I have contingency plans. You could be an accidental car crash, a robbery victim, or even kidnapped and murdered by your deranged friend. There are too many possibilities. Don't forget, I made Lydia disappear for 6 years without a trace. Making you disappear accidentally won't be difficult. His confidence, his coldness, chilled her to the bone. He was right. With his wealth and connections, faking an accident was entirely possible. Appealing to his mercy was useless. Only one of them would walk out alive. Her hand instinctively went to her waist, touching something hard. Her car keys. On the keyring, a tiny decorative Swiss Army knife. She'd bought it for opening parcels, almost forgotten its existence. Small, but better than nothing. She gripped the keyring, her thumb poised over the blade release. Alistair, losing patience, advanced, knife raised. The game's over, Eleanor. Don't blame me. Blame yourself for being too nosy. As he lunged, Eleanor lashed out. Not stabbing, but throwing the entire keyring at his face with all her strength. Alistair instinctively flinched. Now, using his moment of distraction, Eleanor, like a cornered lioness, lowered her head and slammed into his abdomen. They both crashed to the ground, Eleanor on top, desperately trying to wrestle the knife from his hand. This was a fight to the death. No hesitation. Let go, you bitch. Alistair, surprised by her ferocity, struggled. The strength disparity between them was vast. He quickly gained the upper hand, the knife's tip inches from her eye. His cologne, mixed with blood and sweat, was nauseating. His eyes, insane. Was she going to die here? By the hand of the man she had loved? As her strength faded, her vision blurred. In her peripheral vision, she saw Lydia, who had been lying unconscious, open her eyes. Her gaze was unfocused, but her hand was moving, slowly, painfully, towards the thick chain, still shackled to her ankle and fixed to the wall. She wasn't trying to unlock it. She was gripping a section of the chain with both hands. Then, with a final surge of strength, Lydia swung the chain, smashing it against the back of Alistair's head. A dull thud. Alistair stiffened, the pressure on Eleanor easing. His eyes widened in disbelief, the madness fading, replaced by a vacant stare. His head slumped. He lay still. A warm liquid trickled from his head, pooling on the concrete. The world went silent, save for Eleanor's ragged gasps and Lydia's faint moan as she collapsed. Eleanor stared, numb. At the unconscious Alistair, then at Lydia, still clutching the chain, her eyes unfocused again. A wave of shock and post-escape exhaustion washed over her. They had won. For now. Silence. the air thick with blood, mold, and the faint, nauseating scent of exhaustion. Eleanor stared at Alistair, motionless on the floor, blood spreading on the concrete. Lydia lay crumpled, a withered leaf after a storm. The fight had drained them. They had won, but it was a brutal, temporary reprieve. Eleanor's body trembled uncontrollably. Nausea churned in her stomach, but she knew this was no time to relax. Alistair was only unconscious. He could wake at any moment. They had to escape. Forcing herself to calm down, she dragged herself up and went to Lydia, confirming her pulse, weak but steady. She was burning with fever, her body covered in old and new wounds, her arm still bleeding where the knife had grazed it. She needed a hospital. Eleanor then cautiously approached Alistair. He was still unresponsive. His carotid artery pulsed faintly. A complex mix of hatred, fear, and a residue of something indefinable for the man who had been her husband flooded her. She shook her head, banishing the weakness. He was a monster, a kidnapper, a would-be murderer. First, an exit. She tried the iron door. It was bolted shut. Alistair was right. It couldn't be opened from the inside. She screamed for help, but her cries were swallowed by the soundproof walls. Despair returned. Her phone! She stumbled back down the steps, retrieving it from the corner. The screen was cracked, but the light was on. No signal. A red cross. Alistair had indeed blocked the signal. Were they trapped? To wait for Alistair to wake up was unthinkable. No. There has to be a way, she muttered. Alistair has to get in and out. He can't always lock it from the outside. A key. He must have a key, or a signal jammer. If she could find and disable it, they could call for help. She began searching Alistair. His jacket pockets yielded only his phone locked by fingerprint, Face ID, a branded wallet with credit cards, cash, and ironically, an old photo of them smiling happily, now a cruel mockery. A crumpled packet of cigarettes and a lighter. No keys. His trouser pockets were also empty. Where were the keys? Had he left them outside? Unlikely, or hidden them elsewhere. Her gaze swept the basement, settling on an old, chipped wooden cabinet in a corner. She opened it. Inside, a few bottles of water, some compressed biscuits, and a small black plastic box, router-sized, with an antenna and a blinking green light. The signal jammer. Hope surged. She reached to switch it off, but there were no buttons. The power cord was wired directly into the wall. Damn him, he thought of everything. She cursed, slamming the cabinet door. Eleanor's eyes returned to Alistair. His phone. Even if she couldn't unlock it, perhaps she could use his fingerprint or face? The thought repulsed her, but it was their only chance. She knelt, carefully taking his hand. His fingers were cold. She held her breath, pressing his thumb against the sensor. Failed. She tried his face. Failed again. Frustrated, almost giving up, her fingertips brushed against a hard, square object in his inner jacket pocket. She'd missed it during her initial search, hidden by the wallet. Hope flared. She fumbled inside, pulling out not a key but a small, black, leather-bound notebook. It was old, worn at the edges. Alistair always used digital devices for notes. She'd never seen him with a physical notebook. A strong intuition told her it held something important. She opened it, her heart thumping. On the first page, in Alistair's familiar, precise handwriting, "Everything is to get what I want." Dated 6 years ago, around the time Lydia disappeared, her heart leaped. She rapidly flipped through. It was a twisted diary and a plan. Month, day, Eleanor got promoted. She was so happy, but that project should have been mine. Lydia, that bitch, secretly helped her. They both looked down on me. Month, day, must accelerate the plan. That money must be laundered, or all will be lost. Old K is pressing hard. Can't fail again. Old K. Money laundering. Lydia's words were confirmed. Eleanor's hands trembled as she read on. Month, day, opportunity. The company's cross-border project is the perfect channel. If handled right, no one will notice. Lydia, she handles finance. She's a problem. Must find a way to silence her, or make her an ally. Month, day, tested Lydia. She refused, threatened to expose me. Uncooperative. She'll regret this. The basement is ready. Month, day, tonight. The dinner is a good chance. Make her disappear. If she won't cooperate, that will be her permanent home." Eleanor was chilled to the bone. Alistair's diary completely contradicted his story of Lydia's seduction and blackmail. The truth, he, consumed by jealousy over Eleanor's promotion, a detail she'd never thought he cared about, and involved in illegal money laundering, had been discovered and threatened by Lydia. The accidental altercation was a premeditated kidnapping and imprisonment. This notebook was his confession. She forced herself to continue, fighting nausea and rage. He detailed how he engineered Lydia's disappearance, exploited company resources for money laundering, consolidated his position, and played the perfect husband. Eleanor is still so naive, so easily fooled. As long as she has a luxurious life, she won't ask questions. The manor is a risk, but also the safest place. No one would suspect the missing person is right under their nose. Every visit to that bitch is torment, but also a reminder. A reminder of who's in control. A reminder of what happens to those who stand in my way. The pages reeked of extreme selfishness, cold cruelty, and twisted possessiveness. Eleanor saw a complete stranger, a demon hidden beneath a handsome façade. This monster had been sleeping beside her for years. Fear and icy dread washed over her. The final pages of the notebook were even more terrifying. Eleanor has been acting strangely. She's getting suspicious about the manor. Must find a solution. If she finds out, perhaps the manor can have another resident. Old Kay is having issues, might need more money. If all else fails, Eleanor's insurance might be useful. Her insurance. He had taken out a high-value life insurance policy on her. He had not only imprisoned Lydia, but had long planned to eliminate Eleanor for the insurance money. His business trip was a trap, not just for a confrontation, but for his next scheme. This notebook was a ticking time bomb and the key evidence to convict him. She had to take it with her. She closed it, clutching it tightly, a weapon of truth and vengeance. But they were still trapped. The keys, where were they? Her eyes scanned the basement again, settling on the iron bed. On the unconscious Lydia, a thought struck her. Alistair brought Lydia food and water. Would he hide the keys nearby? She searched the bed, lifting the filthy mattress, feeling along the bed frame. Nothing. Then she looked at the chain around Lydia's ankle. It was attached to a large iron ring in the wall. The ring seemed extremely secure. Wait. The fastening of the ring looked odd. Not completely welded. It seemed to have an inconspicuous keyhole. She looked closer. Indeed, the base of the iron ring had a tiny keyhole. Could unlocking this not only free Lydia, but also? She searched Alistair's body again, more thoroughly. Finally, in a tiny, well-hidden pocket inside the waistband of his trousers, she found a small brass key, clearly for a precision lock. This was it! Her hands trembled with excitement. She inserted the tiny key into the keyhole on the ring's base. A soft click. The lock released. She twisted, and the entire iron ring, with its base, came free. To her amazement, a small indentation beneath the base contained a long, narrow key, clearly for the large iron door leading out of the basement. Of course, Alistair, the twisted monster. He had hidden the escape key at the end of Lydia's chain. To save Lydia, you had to find the small key, unlock the ring, and in doing so, find the freedom key. A sick form of twisted pride. Eleanor grabbed the key, her lifeline. Then, she quickly unfastened the chain from Lydia's ankle. Though Lydia's ankle was still bound by the iron cuff, she was no longer fixed to the wall. Lydia, wake up! We can get out!" Eleanor gently patted her face. Lydia moaned, slowly opening her eyes, still unfocused, but a faint spark of light ignited at the mention of getting out. "The key." "You found it?" she whispered. "Yes, we're leaving now." Eleanor tried to help her up, but Lydia was too weak. Eleanor bit her lip, tucked the notebook, her vital evidence, into a hidden pocket. Then she bent down, and with all her remaining strength, lifted Lydia onto her back. Lydia was impossibly light, yet her weight was immense for Eleanor, who was also exhausted. Clutching the freedom key, Eleanor slowly, painstakingly, ascended the stairs. Each step was a monumental effort. Behind them, the unconscious demon. On her back, her rescued sister. Ahead, unknown freedom. At the iron door, she took a deep breath, inserted the key, and turned. It clicked open. She pushed it, forcing open the door that had imprisoned Lydia for 6 years and almost became their tomb. Beyond, the stairs to the ground floor and the promise of fresher air. They were out. The iron door clanged shut behind them, sealing off the basement of sin and despair. But Eleanor knew that door couldn't contain the danger, or the chilling truth that had finally surfaced. The ground floor was brighter than the basement, the fading light of evening filtering through the grimy windows, lending an eerie pallor to the deserted manor. They had to leave, and fast. Every second counted. Lydia, on her back, felt like a feather, but long imprisonment and weakness meant she was a dead weight. Eleanor struggled to hold her, Lydia's breath on her neck, faint and shallow, feverishly hot. "Hold on, Lydia. We're getting out of this hellhole," Eleanor panted, encouraging her friend and herself. Her legs felt like lead. Every step was agony. She scanned the drawing room, identical to her brief earlier glimpse, her eyes fixed on the front door, the final barrier to freedom. Stumbling to it, with Lydia still on her back, Eleanor prayed Alistair hadn't locked it from the outside. She freed a hand, twisting the doorknob. It opened. A cool evening breeze, carrying the scent of grass and earth, wafted in, chilling her sweat-damp face. Freedom, the world outside. She didn't hesitate, struggling out of the manor with Lydia. The overgrown garden seemed to writhe in the twilight, a multitude of ghostly eyes. Her Porsche was still at the end of the lane, her only hope. But as she struggled across the wild garden, nearing her car, the roar of an engine, growing rapidly, shattered the rural peace. Blinding headlights cut through the gloom, blazing down the lane, pulling up sharply beside her Porsche, blocking her only escape. A black Mercedes GLA. Alistair's car. He had an accomplice. Eleanor's heart sank. Despair, like icy tendrils, wrapped around her. Too late. Out of the frying pan, into the fire. The driver's door opened. A figure sprang out, agile. In the Mercedes headlights, she saw not the terrifying thug she expected, but a young, anxious face. A face that, at this moment, was angelic. It was Ben, her private driver and bodyguard. "Madam, are you all right?" Ben exclaimed, seeing her disheveled, carrying Lydia. He rushed forward. Ben was one of her most trusted staff, loyal and capable. Before coming here, a vague text message, sent from unease, simply said, "If you don't hear from me tonight, check the old manor in the West End." He had arrived just in time. "Ben," Eleanor cried, clutching at him like a drowning woman. "Help me, Alistair. He's a madman. He imprisoned Lydia. He tried to kill us." Ben, though shocked, quickly regained his professional calm. Without a word, he took the unconscious Lydia from Eleanor, supporting her carefully. "Madam, get in the car, please. We'll talk on the way." He rushed Lydia to her Porsche, Eleanor scrambling to unlock it. As they opened the car door to put Lydia in the back seat, a loud bang echoed from the manor. They whirled around. The front door burst open. A figure, like a demon from hell, stumbled out, swaying. It was Alistair. He had woken up so fast. His face and hair were caked in dried and fresh blood. His eyes were wild. In his hand, the penknife gleamed menacingly in the dim light. He saw them. He saw Ben. He let out a primal roar. "Trying to run? No one is leaving." Like a wounded, rabid bull, he charged, incredibly fast. "Madam, get in." Ben reacted instantly, pushing Lydia into the back seat, then shoving Eleanor into the driver's seat. He turned to face Alistair, unflinching. "Ben, watch out! He has a knife!" Eleanor screamed. But before she finished, Alistair's knife flashed. Ben sidestepped, simultaneously delivering a swift chop to Alistair's knife-wielding wrist. A metallic clang, the knife clattered to the ground. But Alistair was utterly insane. He ignored the pain, charging with brute force, grappling with Ben. They tumbled on the overgrown lawn, punching and kicking. Eleanor, In the driver's seat, her heart pounding, knew she had to help. She couldn't let Ben face this madman alone. Her eyes darted around the car. On the passenger floor, an unopened bottle of mineral water. She grabbed it, threw open the car door, and aimed for the back of Alistair's head, who was now pinning Ben. The bottle hit with a dull thud, splashing water. Alistair's movements faltered. Ben seized the opportunity, flipping him over, pinning him with his knee, twisting his arms behind his back. "Madam." "Quick, there's a spare rope in the boot," Ben gasped. Eleanor raced to the back, found a coil of climbing rope, and together they tied Alistair's hands and feet, ignoring his frantic struggles and curses. Exhausted, they collapsed on the grass. Alistair, like a captured beast, writhed, growling, his eyes filled with venomous hatred. "Eleanor, you won't get away. Old Kay won't let you," he snarled, menacingly. Old Kay. That name again, linked to money laundering and murder. "Ben, put him in the boot," Eleanor commanded, decisively. "We can't leave him here. He'll escape, or his accomplices will find him. We need to take him to the police." Ben nodded, struggling to lift the thrashing Alistair, stuffing him into the Mercedes boot and locking it securely. The Mercedes was well insulated. Alistair's muffled thumps and curses were barely audible. "Madam, you take your car." "Take Miss Shaw to the hospital. I'll take Mr. Finch's car and follow, taking him directly to the police station," Ben efficiently planned. "Good," Eleanor agreed. Lydia's condition was critical. Every second counted. She got back into her Porsche, fastened her seatbelt. Lydia was curled up in the back, semi-conscious. Eleanor glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her heart aching with pity and rage. "Alistair Finch, you will face justice." She started the engine. Tires crunched over weeds as she turned onto the narrow country lane. Ben started the Mercedes, following closely. Two cars, one after the other, sped into the deepening twilight towards the city. Eleanor's relief was fleeting. Alistair's threat echoed. "Old Kay won't let you." This meant even with Alistair caught, they were still in danger. The shadowy Old Kay was the true menace. Headlights cut through the dark, bumpy road. Her heart was as turbulent as the path ahead. She had to protect Lydia and herself and the crucial notebook. It was the key to bringing down Alistair and his hidden network. She glanced at the Mercedes following her. Ben's steady driving brought a measure of comfort, but a subtle unease, like a hidden current, stirred within her. "Ben," he came so quickly. "My text was so vague. How did he pinpoint this exact location? Even navigation struggles here." The thought flickered, quickly overshadowed by concern for Lydia and the urgency of their escape. No time for suspicion. Hospital and police station. She pressed the accelerator. The cars sped along the quiet country road, leaving the nightmare manor behind. The road widened, streetlights casting flickering shadows inside Eleanor's car. She gripped the steering wheel, her palms still sweaty from the fight. Lydia was curled in the back, her face ghostly pale, her breathing shallow and ragged. Each bump of the car elicited a soft moan of pain, each sound a needle in Eleanor's heart. "Hold on, Lydia, we're almost there," she whispered, reassuring both of them. She glanced at the black Mercedes GLA following her, a loyal guardian. Ben's calm driving was comforting, but Alistair's muffled struggles and his dying threat about Old Kay hung over her like a storm cloud. More cars appeared on the road, but the nearest hospital was still 40 minutes away. Could Lydia hold on? Eleanor checked the navigation, wondering if there was a closer clinic. Just then, Ben's Mercedes accelerated, pulling alongside her. He rolled down his window, gesturing for her to pull over. What was wrong? Had Alistair broken free? Eleanor's heart pounded. She signaled, pulling over to the emergency lane. The Mercedes stopped tightly beside her. Eleanor rolled down her window. The cool night air rushed in. "Ben, what's happening?" Ben was already out of his car, rushing to her window. His face was grim. "Madam," he whispered, "we have a problem. Mr. Finch's car is running out of fuel. It won't make it to the city. And..." He glanced at Lydia in the back seat. "Miss Shaw's condition looks critical. She needs immediate attention to stop the bleeding and prevent infection. The city is too far." I fear for her. Eleanor's heart sank. One disaster after another. Alistair's car out of fuel. Lydia's injuries too severe to wait. What do we do? She asked, flustered. Ben, clearly more experienced, quickly responded. I remember a turning a few miles ahead. There's a small village clinic, or at least a small surgery. We'll go there first. Get Miss Shaw stabilized. Stop the bleeding. Clean the wounds, and see if we can get some petrol, or call an ambulance. Anything is better than waiting on the roadside. A village clinic. Eleanor hesitated. What kind of medical care could they offer? But looking at Lydia, barely clinging to life, she knew Ben was right. Immediate action was essential. The risk of bleeding out and infection was real. All right, go there, you lead. She had no other choice but to trust Ben. Understood, madam. Follow me closely. Ben nodded, hurried back to his Mercedes. The two cars restarted, the Mercedes now leading, turning off the main road onto a narrower, dimly lit, bumpy concrete lane. Eleanor drove carefully, minimizing jostling for Lydia. After 7 or 8 minutes, amidst a sparse clump of trees, they saw a few low-slung buildings. A faded Red Cross sign glowed above the entrance, Peaceful Hamlet Medical Post. It looked even more basic than a clinic. A few battered motorbikes and bicycles were parked outside. Lights were on, but it seemed deserted. Ben got out first, opening Eleanor's back door. Madam, I'll carry Miss Shaw inside. You explain to the doctor. Keep it simple, just say it was an accident. Right. Eleanor nodded, now seeing Ben's calm instructions as her only anchor. He carefully lifted Lydia from the car and hurried towards the medical post. Eleanor followed, clutching her handbag, the notebook inside. Inside, a sleepy man in a white coat, perhaps 50, and a dozing nurse were startled awake by their arrival. Doctor, quick! My friend is badly hurt. She needs emergency care. Eleanor rushed forward, trying to sound only anxious, not traumatized. The doctor frowned, but gestured for Ben to place Lydia on the only examination bed. What happened? Such severe injuries? He asked, donning gloves, examining Lydia's knife wound and bruises. She fell off a hill, accidentally, got cut by branches. Eleanor lied, her palms sweating. The injuries clearly weren't from a fall. Would the doctor believe her? The doctor, cleaning Lydia's arm wound with tweezers, gave her a suspicious look, but said nothing. He simply told the nurse to prepare antiseptic, bandages, and a tetanus shot. Lost a lot of blood, needs cleaning and stitches. Take her temperature and blood pressure first. The nurse bustled to prepare. The doctor focused on the wound. Ben stood near the door, seemingly watching outside, but his sharp eyes scanned every corner of the room. Eleanor breathed a little easier, her attention fixed on Lydia, her pale, suffering face. Her heart ached. 6 years, over 2,000 days and nights. How had she survived that hell? Alistair, that monster. Just then, her phone vibrated. She instinctively pulled it out. A new message notification. It was from Detective Inspector Zhao, a retired detective who had previously investigated Lydia's disappearance. The message was short. Eleanor, regarding the old manor in the West End you mentioned, we've found some new leads concerning Alistair's company's financial dealings. It's very complex. Be careful. Don't make any rash moves. Wait for my word. The message was sent half an hour ago, but had only just come through in this medical post. The basement's signal jammer was effective. The signal here was also weak, intermittent. But these few words were a lightning bolt. Detective Inspector Zhao had also found financial irregularities in Alistair's company. This matched Lydia's money laundering and the old K in the notebook. Her suspicions were not just her own. The police were onto it. However, the message also plunged her into icy despair. Be careful, don't make any rash moves. Zhao's warning echoed in her ears. She had not only made a rash move, she had just kidnapped Alistair. What now? Call Zhao immediately. Tell him everything? But she glanced at Ben, near the door. He was her only helper. How could she explain Alistair, tied up in the boot? Would Zhao believe her, the woman who had kidnapped her husband? Would it tip off old Kay? As she held the phone, wrestling with her decision, a sudden, searing pain exploded at the back of her head. She saw stars. She didn't even have time to cry out before her body crumpled forward. In the split second before unconsciousness, she glimpsed Ben's normally composed face, now cold and alien in the dim light of the medical post. In his hand, a small fire extinguisher canister. He had attacked her. Why? Darkness. Thick, cold, suffocating darkness. Consciousness, like fragments of a shipwreck, tried to surface, but was pulled down by an invisible force. The throbbing pain at the back of her neck was the only anchor, reminding her of the horrifying moment before she passed out. Ben. The fire extinguisher. Why? The instinct to survive, a fragile thread, clung to her fading awareness. She struggled, trying to open her heavy eyelids. Shapes were blurry, a buzzing sound in her ears. Then, hushed voices. Must deal with this quickly. Can't stay here, a strange, slightly hoarse male voice said. I know, Ben's voice, calm, even impatient, completely unlike her familiar, respectful driver. But two women, one half dead, one unconscious, plus the trouble in the boot. Too many targets. Old Kay is furious. That fool Alistair can't even handle his own wife, and might have attracted the police, the strange man spat. Old Kay Ben was one of them. Eleanor's heart stopped. A tidal wave of fear and betrayal washed over her. She forced herself to remain still, her breathing shallow, straining to hear. The plan must be brought forward, Ben's cold voice said. First, transfer them to the main hideout. Alistair will face Old Kay's judgment. He might still be useful. What about the old man and the nurse at this medical post? Knock them out, tied them up. They're in the back room. They won't bother us for now. Go get the cars, bring them to the back door. We're leaving. Footsteps. Someone left. Eleanor felt someone approach. It was Ben. He knelt, checking the ropes around her wrists. Her hands were tied behind her back, her ankles also bound. He seemed to be checking if she was still unconscious. Eleanor kept her eyes tightly shut, not daring to flutter her eyelashes. Her muscles were tense, like stone. She smelled his faint cigarette smoke, mixed with a cold, unfamiliar scent. Eleanor Finch, he suddenly whispered, as if to himself, or to her. You had a good life as Mrs. Finch. Why did you have to seek your own demise? If you had just behaved, you would have been fine. His fingers brushed her cheek, a chilling sensation. A pity. But at Old Kay's place, perhaps you'll have other value. He stood up and walked away. Eleanor cautiously opened her eyes, just a slit, adjusting to the dim light. This seemed to be the medical post's back storeroom, filled with medicine boxes and clutter. Lydia lay on a stretcher nearby, still unconscious, but her arm wound seemed roughly bandaged. She looked worse. Her face was ashen. More chillingly, Alistair had been dragged into a corner. His hands and feet were still bound, his mouth taped. His eyes were wide open, filled with fury, fear, and a look of stunned disbelief as he stared at Ben. He clearly realized Ben's betrayal, or perhaps that he too was merely a pawn in Old Kay's game. Just then, a car engine rumbled in the backyard. Headlights swept across the small storeroom window. It was the black Mercedes GLA and her Porsche. They had brought both cars. Quickly! The strange man, whom Eleanor guessed had been talking to Ben, pushed open the door. He was a burly, thuggish-looking man. Ben and the thug lifted Alistair like a sack of rubbish and dumped him into the Mercedes boot. Then they came for Eleanor and Lydia. What about this half-dead one? The thug asked, pointing at Lydia, his voice indifferent. Ben frowned. Take her too. Old Kay might find her useful. Put her in the back seat of the Porsche, with Eleanor. The thug roughly grabbed Lydia, lifting her. Lydia let out a faint whimper of pain. Eleanor's heart twisted, but she was powerless. Then they approached her. Eleanor quickly shut her eyes, feigning unconsciousness. They lifted her, one on each side. Her body was limp, yielding to their handling. She was put into the back seat of her Porsche, crammed next to Lydia. The thug used another rope to roughly tie their ankles to the seat frame, preventing struggle. You take the Mercedes, I'll take this one, Ben instructed the thug. Follow the original route, avoid main roads, avoid cameras. Understood? The car door slammed shut. Darkness fell in the storeroom. Eleanor heard the two cars repositioning outside, then the engine started. The car jolted, driving away from the medical post. She cautiously opened her eyes. Through the grimy window, they were on a completely unfamiliar, even more remote road. The night was pitch black, almost no streetlights. Only the car headlights illuminated the unknown, dangerous path ahead. Ben was driving, focused. His profile, in the faint dashboard light, looked hard and cold. Eleanor lay in the back, squeezed against the unconscious. Lydia, hands and feet tied. Despair, like waves, crashed over her. Was this the end? Escaping Alistair's clutches only to fall into the hands of the more mysterious, more powerful Old K. Ben, the inside man. This realization was colder than Alistair's betrayal. He had been lurking beside her for so many years, and she had never suspected. Her mind raced. The notebook. Was it still in her bag? Had her bag fallen at the medical post, or had they taken it? She cautiously shifted, her bound fingers groping behind her. Luckily, her bag seemed to have been casually tossed onto the floor mat, within reach. A surge of euphoria. Her fingers fumbled harder. Canvas, her bag. She held her breath, slowly, silently, unhooking the clasp. She felt inside. Not many items. Lipstick, powder, car keys. And then, the hard, square, leather-bound notebook. It was still there. They hadn't thoroughly searched her or her bag. They probably thought a frantic woman wouldn't carry anything important. This might be her only chance. She had to hide the notebook. It couldn't fall into Old K's hands. But where? The car would surely be searched. Her clothes were tight, pockets were shallow. Her eyes scanned the seat crevices. Too easily found. Under the seat? Her hands were tied. Then she saw Lydia. She was wearing Alistair's old, oversized men's shirt pockets. The pocket looked deep, and since Lydia was lying on her side, the pocket was pressed underneath, making it relatively hidden. It was a risky decision. If the notebook was found on Lydia, she might face even crueler treatment. But Eleanor had no better option. Trust Lydia, just as Lydia had trusted her. She gritted her teeth, using her bound hands to painstakingly extract the notebook from her bag, then, shielded by her body, fumbled to tuck it into the shirt pocket underneath Lydia. She was drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. Just as she hid the notebook, the car suddenly slowed, then stopped. So soon? She quickly closed her eyes, feigning unconsciousness. The driver's door opened. Ben got out. Eleanor heard him walk to the back of the car, seemingly checking something. Then he opened the back passenger door. The cold night air rushed in. He didn't immediately move them. He stood there, observing. Eleanor felt his gaze sweep over her and Lydia. Time crawled by. Why wasn't he moving? What was he waiting for? Had he noticed something? Just as she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, he suddenly leaned in, close to her. Her nerves tightened to breaking point. His hand didn't go to Lydia. It went to her bound wrists. His fingers brushed her tightly clenched fist. Then she felt a cold, hard, tiny object quickly and discreetly slipped into her palm. The feel of it was like a small piece of metal or a razor blade. Eleanor froze, her mind blank. What did this mean? Who was he, really? An enemy? Or... Ben offered no explanation, no pause. As if nothing had happened, he straightened up and closed the car door. Then she heard him walk to the Mercedes, seemingly switching places with the thug. The thug got into the Porsche's driver's seat, grumbling, and started the car. The two cars moved again, driving into deeper darkness. Eleanor lay in the back seat, clutching the mysterious, cold piece of metal, a storm raging inside her, even more violent than when she'd been betrayed. Ben. Who are you? The car bounced along the dark, seemingly endless road. The thug in the driver's seat had a cigarette hanging from his mouth, occasionally glancing at them in the rearview mirror, his eyes fierce and impatient. The car was filled with the smell of smoke, blood, and a suffocating despair. But Eleanor's heart, despite everything, was now burning with a faint yet stubborn flame, fueled by the cold metal in her palm. A razor blade. Small, but incredibly sharp, seemingly custom-made, its edge carefully wrapped in a tiny strip of tape to prevent cuts. Ben had slipped it into her hand at the last moment. Why? The question tangled in her confused mind. He was old Kay's man. He had attacked her, delivered them to the lion's den. Yet, he had secretly given her a tool that might open a path to escape. Was it a cat and mouse game? A pang of conscience? Or a more complex scheme she couldn't fathom? No time to think. Whatever his intentions, this blade was her and Lydia's only hope. She had to use it. Her hands were roughly bound behind her back with nylon rope, her wrists raw and numb. She carefully adjusted her fingers, pinching the blade, cautiously pressing the taped edge against the rope. The blade was tiny. Operating it was incredibly difficult, especially with the car bouncing, and her needing to remain perfectly still to avoid alerting the driver. She held her breath, all her senses focused on the small area behind her back, the blade cut. The feel of the rope was almost imperceptible. She had to rely on feel, again and again, repeating the slow, dangerous motion. Sweat beaded on her forehead, dampening her temples. Time stretched endlessly. Lydia's faint breathing beside her sounded like a life clock ticking down. The thug's radio played a noisy late-night program, masking the minuscule sounds she was making. After what felt like ages, perhaps minutes, perhaps centuries, she felt the rope around her wrist loosen. Success. One strand cut. She didn't dare relax, continuing to saw at the remaining strands. Finally, with an almost inaudible snap of fibers, the ropes binding her hands gave way. The tingling pain of blood returning to her numb hands almost made her cry out, but she bit her lip, hard, free. Her hands, at least, were free. She didn't move immediately, gently flexing her stiff, numb wrists, allowing blood circulation to return. Then, slowly, she drew her hands from behind her back, her movements as light as falling feathers. The thug in the driver's seat seemed to notice nothing. He was swaying his head slightly to the radio music. Opportunity. She leaned forward, using her newfound freedom, swiftly and silently cutting the ropes binding her and Lydia's ankles. Lydia remained unconscious, completely unaware. Now, the crucial step. She had to silently subdue the driver. He was burly. A head-on confrontation was suicide. Her only advantage was surprise. And the car. She scanned the interior. No suitable weapons. Her bag was on the floor mat, but the notebook was hidden, and the rest was just toiletries. Between the driver and passenger seats, a heavy glass ashtray. She slowly straightened up, like a coiled spring. The car was on a relatively straight stretch of road. Now. She lunged forward, her left hand, with lightning speed, clamped around the thug's neck. Simultaneously, her right hand grabbed the heavy ashtray, and she swung it with all her might at his temple. The thug, completely unprepared for an attack from a bound, unconscious woman, only managed a short grunt. The steering wheel instantly swerved. The car veered sharply towards the roadside. He instinctively tried to hit the brakes, but Eleanor's arm was tight around his neck, preventing effective action. The ashtray struck its target squarely. The thug's body stiffened, his eyes rolled back. He slumped against the steering wheel. Beep! Beep! His body pressed the horn, letting out a piercing, continuous wail. The car, out of control, careened towards a ditch. Damn it, Eleanor cursed, letting go of his neck, struggling to push him off the steering wheel. At the same time, she stretched her foot towards the brake pedal. The car swayed dangerously. She half leaned over, desperately pressing the brake. Screech! Tires shrieked against the asphalt. The car, just before colliding with a large tree by the roadside, finally stopped, barely a foot from the trunk. The violent jolt threw Eleanor against the passenger seat back, seeing stars. But she couldn't stop. The blaring horn would surely alert Ben in the Mercedes. She quickly checked the thug. He was completely unconscious. She immediately searched him, finding a phone and a wallet. The phone was password-locked, useless. The wallet contained a small amount of cash and an ID card. Wang. She didn't look closely, stuffing the phone and wallet into her own pocket. Then, she unhesitatingly threw open the car door, stumbled out, and quickly opened the rear passenger door. Lydia! Lydia! "Wake up," she patted her face. "We have to leave these cars, now." Lydia moaned, slowly opening her eyes, still unfocused, but a flicker of awareness returned. "Eleanor, we have to go, quickly." Eleanor struggled to pull her out of the car. Lydia was too weak to stand, her entire weight pressing on Eleanor. Just then, the Mercedes GLA also screeched to a halt ahead. Its brake lights flashed red in the darkness. The driver's door opened. Ben's silhouette appeared in the halo of the headlights. He saw the crashed Porsche, and Eleanor, half carrying Lydia, trying to escape into the dark woods beside the road. He stood there. He didn't immediately rush towards them. He just watched, silently. The distance was too great to discern his expression. What was he waiting for? Why wasn't he moving? Eleanor's heart leaped into her throat. No time to think. She half-carried, half-dragged Lydia, stumbling into the dense woods. Thorns tore at her clothes and skin, but she felt no pain. Only one thought: escape. As far as possible. The woods were pitch black, underfoot thick layers of fallen leaves and tangled roots. She ran, carrying Lydia, falling and scrambling, not daring to look back. No sound of pursuit. Only the two car headlights, like giant eyes, remained visible at the edge of the woods, growing smaller. She didn't know how long she ran, until her lungs felt like they would burst, her legs like lead. She collapsed against a tree. Lydia leaned against her, breathing weakly. They were safe, for now. Why hadn't Ben chased them? What was he playing at? Eleanor gasped for breath, her heart pounding. The phone she'd taken from Wang still had no signal. They were lost in this unfamiliar wilderness. Lydia was gravely injured. Eleanor had only the razor blade and a useless phone, but at least they were free from immediate control. At least she had hidden the crucial notebook on Lydia. The dark woods, like an invisible net, enveloped them. Every hoot of an owl, every rustle of leaves in the wind, made her jump. She held the unconscious Lydia close, leaning against a cold tree trunk, drenched in sweat and night dew, trembling uncontrollably. Time stretched. Why hadn't Ben pursued them? This silence was more terrifying than a direct chase. Was he toying with them, like a cat with a mouse, waiting for them to exhaust themselves before capturing them? Or did he have another motive? Lydia's breathing grew shallower, her body burning hot. Eleanor knew they couldn't wait. She had to find help, or Lydia wouldn't survive. She pulled out the phone from Wang's pocket. Still no signal. Desperate, she tried calling the emergency number, 999. To her surprise, a connection tone. The signal was extremely weak, intermittent, but it was hope. "Hello, can you hear me? Help, we need help," she whispered urgently into the phone, fearing the signal would cut out. "Location?" A broken voice came through, interspersed with static. "Location?" She had no idea where they were. I'm in the wilderness outside the city, near a place called Peaceful Hamlet Medical Post. We're in the woods. My friend is seriously injured, critically ill, and there's illegal detention and attempted murder involved. The culprits might still be nearby. Please, send help quickly," she stammered, giving all the information she could. "Peaceful Hamlet. Received. Keep the line open." The signal grew even more unstable, then cut out completely. The call had gone through. The police should be able to pinpoint their general area. Eleanor clutched the phone, her lifeline. Now, all they could do was wait and hide. She checked Lydia, moving her to a more concealed spot behind the tree, then covered them slightly with fallen leaves. She held the razor blade tightly, her ears strained for any sound. After what felt like an eternity, perhaps only 10 minutes, a faint siren wailed in the distance. Closer and closer. "They're here! They're here!" Eleanor cried, tears welling up. She struggled to stand, wanting to run out and scream for help, but fearing a trap, she forced herself to remain hidden, peeking through the trees. The siren stopped on the road, bordering the woods. Red and blue police lights pierced the night, illuminating the trees. Several police cars. "Mrs. Eleanor Finch! Miss Lydia Shaw! Where are you? We are the police. You are safe!" A clear voice boomed from a loudspeaker. "Real police, not imposters." Eleanor didn't hesitate. She used her last reserves of strength to help Lydia up, stumbling out of the woods. "Here, we're here," she croaked, waving her arms. Several strong flashlights immediately shone on them. Several police officers rushed forward. Seeing their disheveled state, especially Lydia, barely alive, they showed shock. "Quick! Ambulance! Stretcher!" A middle-aged officer, seemingly in charge, immediately commanded. His eyes were sharp, his expression grim. "I'm Detective Inspector Zhao, from the city police. You're Mrs. Eleanor Finch?" Detective Inspector Zhao. He had come himself. Her fragmented emergency call must have gone directly to him. "Detective Inspector Zhao, it's me. Quick." "Save Lydia! She's dying!" Eleanor cried, as if seeing a long-lost relative, tears finally flowing. Trained paramedics immediately placed Lydia carefully on a stretcher, giving her oxygen and preliminary treatment. Then she was quickly loaded into the waiting ambulance. "Madam, how are you? Can you hold on? We need to understand what happened immediately." Zhao asked, supporting the swaying Eleanor, his voice calm and firm, instilling a strange sense of security. "I'm fine," Eleanor gasped, pointing towards the road. "Alistair. I knocked him out and tied him in the boot. And his accomplice. In a Mercedes and my Porsche over there. And a driver named Ben. He's an insider. He attacked me, but for some reason, he didn't chase us. And there's a mastermind called Old K behind them." She spoke rapidly, relaying all the crucial information she knew. Zhao's eyes sharpened. He immediately ordered his subordinates, "Team 1, secure those 2 cars. Search thoroughly. Be careful. Suspects might be armed. Team 2, set up roadblocks along the road and search for the driver named Ben. Notify forensics to get here immediately." The officers moved swiftly, the scene tense and orderly. Eleanor was helped into another police car, wrapped in a thermal blanket. A female officer handed her warm water. The warmth spreading through her throat made her feel truly alive. "Detective Inspector Zhao, the evidence, Alistair's crimes." Eleanor clutched his arm, urgently. "There's a notebook, a black, leather-bound notebook, written by Alistair himself. It details how he imprisoned Lydia and his money laundering. It mentions someone called Old K." Zhao's expression grew serious. "Where is the notebook?" "I hid it on Lydia, in her shirt pocket," Eleanor blurted out. "Quick! Don't lose it." Zhao immediately contacted his colleagues on the ambulance via walkie-talkie. Soon a reply came. "Detective Inspector Zhao, we've found it. There is indeed a notebook in Miss Lydia Shaw's shirt pocket." Eleanor let out a long sigh of relief, slumping in the seat. The most crucial evidence was secured. Then, the search team reported from the road. "Detective Inspector Zhao, a man found tied and unconscious in the Mercedes boot, confirmed to be Alistair Finch. Another unconscious man, found in the Porsche's driver's seat. Identity pending. Knife and other items found in the car. No other suspects found in either car. The driver named Ben is gone." Ben was gone. The news was both expected and complex. What role did he truly play? Alistair and Wang were in police custody. The immediate threat was gone, but Old K and Ben were still at large. The shadow had not completely lifted. Eleanor was taken to the police station for a detailed statement. She recounted the nightmare, from discovering the Manor's secret to the basement horror, the betrayal at the medical post, and the escape in the wilderness. Every word was a reenactment of the nightmare. Detective Inspector Zhao listened silently, his brows furrowed, occasionally asking key questions. When she mentioned Ben slipping her the razor blade but not pursuing them, a thoughtful expression crossed his face. By the time she finished, it was dawn. Zhao told her to rest at the station while the technical department analyzed the evidence and they interrogated Alistair and Wang. Eleanor lay on the temporary bed in the restroom, physically and mentally exhausted, but unable to sleep. Lydia had been rushed to the city's best hospital for emergency surgery, under police guard. Zhao told her Lydia's condition was critical but stable, with a strong chance of survival. This was perhaps the only good news she'd heard in 24 hours. At noon, Zhao returned, his face weary from sleeplessness, but his eyes sharp. "Madam, the preliminary results are in." he said, sitting opposite her, his voice heavy. The contents of the notebook are horrifying. Alistair Finch has confessed to the illegal detention of Miss Lydia Shaw and to money laundering through his company. The details match up perfectly. He also mentioned an upstream contact named Old K, but claims he only met him a few times and doesn't know his true identity. He always used unregistered phone cards for communication. Eleanor's heart jumped. What about Wang? Wang broke. He's a hired thug, paid by Old K to handle dirty work. He admitted receiving a call from Ben last night to pick you up at the medical post and transfer you. He says Ben is one of Old K's core men, highly trusted. But he also doesn't know Old K's identity, only that he's a powerful, extremely cautious individual. Ben again, he truly was a key figure. As for Ben, Zhao paused, looking at her. We checked his background. It's clean, almost too perfect. That makes him even more suspicious. He seems to be a pawn carefully placed by your side. His last action was very unusual. We're considering two possibilities. Eleanor held her breath. First, he is indeed Old K's man, but perhaps had a personal vendetta against Alistair, or wanted to use your help to take Alistair down. So he helped you escape, letting Alistair fall into our hands. Second, Zhao's gaze was profound. He might have another identity. We're investigating his social circles and financial dealings thoroughly. Another identity? Before Eleanor could speculate further, Zhao's phone rang. He answered, listened for a few moments, and his face changed dramatically. What? Confirmed? Good. I understand. Mobilize for arrest immediately. Be quick. He hung up, looking at Eleanor, his eyes filled with shock and a sense of impending battle. Madam, forensics has made a major discovery. They recovered fragments of deleted emails from another of Alistair's encrypted email accounts. They mentioned several secret fund transfers, including recipient information. After cross-referencing and tracing, he took a deep breath, speaking slowly. All the clues point to someone we never suspected. The other founder of Finch Group, your husband's longtime business partner, who always seemed harmless and even did a lot of charity work. Group Vice President Arthur Bennett. Arthur Bennett. He is the mastermind behind Old K. Arthur Bennett. The name struck Eleanor like a stone thrown into stagnant water, sending the deepest, coldest ripples of meaning and disbelief through her already turbulent heart. How could it be him? The man who always wore impeccably tailored suits, gold-rimmed glasses, spoke slowly and softly, with a perpetually mild smile. The Uncle Arthur, who managed her family trust when Alistair was busy with business, who helped her tirelessly when her father was ill. The philanthropist who generously donated at charity galas, lauded as a benevolent businessman. He, the group vice president, was the hidden mastermind, orchestrating illegal dealings, ordering the imprisonment and torture of her best friend for 6 years, and possibly with blood on his hands. Eleanor slumped in the chair, cold to the core, her fingertips trembling. Compared to Alistair's brutal frankness, Arthur Bennett's extreme hypocrisy was far more chilling. She had never suspected, beneath that seemingly benevolent mask, lay such a demonic heart. We are also shocked, Zhao said, his voice bringing her back to the present. His face was grim. But the recovered email fragments, Wang's vague accusations, and our tracking of some of Arthur Bennett's hidden fund flows all highly match. He had all the motive and capability. He's a longtime member of the group, understands financial operations extremely well, and has enough authority to bypass Alistair for certain transactions. Furthermore, in the last 2 years, his power within the group has been subtly suppressed by Alistair. He had every reason to seek alternative financial gains, or even eliminate Alistair and take his place. Zhao's words were a key, unlocking a flood of memories. Eleanor recalled Alistair occasionally complaining about Arthur Bennett becoming more restless, challenging him on certain projects. She had dismissed it as ordinary corporate politics, never imagining such a sinister plot. So Alistair, he was just a pawn in Arthur Bennett's game? A pawn that could be sacrificed at any time? Eleanor whispered, a deeper, more chilling realization dawning on her. If even a ruthless character like Alistair could be manipulated by Arthur Bennett, How terrifyingly cunning and resourceful must old K be? Most likely, Zhao confirmed her suspicion. Alistair's arrogance and recklessness were probably all part of Arthur Bennett's calculations. Perhaps even your investigation and this entire operation. He didn't finish, but the implication was clear. They might have unwittingly become the catalyst for Arthur Bennett to remove Alistair, his blunt tool. What do we do now? Arrest him directly? Eleanor asked urgently. No, based on the current evidence, it's not enough to definitively convict Arthur Bennett. He's too cunning. The emails are fragments, Wang's accusations are vague, and Alistair's notebook only mentions old K. Arthur Bennett can easily deny everything. Zhao shook his head, his eyes sharp. We need more conclusive evidence, or we need him to expose himself, draw him out. Eleanor immediately understood Zhao's intention. Precisely, Zhao whispered. Madam, we need your cooperation. Arthur Bennett must know something is wrong by now, but he won't be sure how much we know. He'll be desperate for information, especially about your condition and the notebook's whereabouts. A daring, even reckless, plan began to take shape, as Zhao explained. Hours later, a carefully constructed piece of news began to circulate discreetly within certain circles. Alistair Finch, chairman of Finch Group, has been taken into police custody on suspicion of illegal detention and other charges. His wife, Eleanor Finch, highly traumatized, is recovering in a private hospital, reportedly disoriented, but believed to hold crucial evidence. Police are actively searching for the missing driver, Ben. Eleanor knew she was the bait. She followed the plan, admitting herself to a private hospital's VIP ward under strict police surveillance. Plainclothes officers guarded her 24/7. She feigned severe trauma, refusing most visitors, but accidentally let slip to a socialite friend, who was close to Arthur Bennett, that she possessed something vital Alistair had left her, hidden in a place only she knew. In the hospital room, Eleanor lay in bed, seemingly frail, but her nerves were taut. Every doctor and nurse who entered was scrutinized from the corner of her eye. She knew Arthur Bennett would send someone, either to confirm her state or to make a desperate move to seize the evidence. Days crawled by. Lydia, in another hospital's intensive care unit, was finally stable, out of critical danger, but still unconscious. This news brought Eleanor some comfort. On the third night, deep in the dark hours, only a dim bedside lamp illuminated the room. Eleanor lay with closed eyes, sleepless. Suddenly, the door creaked open. A figure in white scrubs, masked and hooded, slipped in, moving like a cat, quietly closing the door behind them. Eleanor's heart leaped. He's here. He moved silently towards the bed, his gaze falling on her sleeping form. He began carefully sifting through items on the bedside table. Just as his hand reached for a dummy USB stick, placed there as false evidence, Eleanor's eyes snapped open. Simultaneously, she pressed the alarm hidden under her pillow. "I've been waiting for you," she said, her voice cold. The doctor froze, reacting instantly, turning to flee. But it was too late. The door burst open. Zhao and several armed police officers stormed in. "Police, don't move!" The doctor, desperate, pulled a dagger from beneath his scrubs and lunged at Eleanor, clearly intending to take her hostage. At that critical moment, the bathroom door burst open. A figure sprang out like a leopard, delivering a swift takedown, precisely seizing the doctor's knife-wielding wrist, simultaneously kicking him in the side. A sickening crunch of bone, a scream of pain. The doctor crumpled to his knees, the dagger clattering to the floor. The person who emerged from the bathroom slowly removed their mask and hood, revealing a face Eleanor knew, yet now saw in a completely new light. Ben. He looked at Eleanor, his gaze complex, but his voice calm. "Madam, it's all right now." Eleanor stared at him, stunned, then at Zhao. Zhao nodded slightly, reassuring her. Ben, it turned out, was an undercover police officer who had infiltrated Old K's criminal organization years ago, aiming to expose its structure and gather evidence. That night at the medical post, he had attacked her to gain Wang's trust and avoid blowing his cover. Slipping her the razor blade was to give her a chance at survival, and also to stir up trouble, forcing Arthur Bennett to reveal himself. He hadn't pursued them because he needed to immediately report back to Zhao and continue his undercover mission, awaiting the signal for the final sweep. The man posing as a doctor, after interrogation, proved to be Arthur Bennett's trusted henchman, sent to find and destroy the evidence in Eleanor's possession, and if possible, make her accidentally disappear. Caught red-handed with Ben's testimony and the subsequent discovery of extensive evidence in Arthur Bennett's home and office linking him to Old Kay, Arthur Bennett's mask of benevolence was finally ripped away. The deeply entrenched criminal organization was completely dismantled. A month later, sunlight streamed through the bright windows of a rehabilitation hospital in central London. Lydia sat up in bed, her face still pale, but her eyes had regained their former clarity and spirit. After dedicated treatment and care, most of her physical wounds had healed. More importantly, the psychological trauma of 6 years was slowly mending with the help of a therapist. Eleanor peeled an apple, cutting it into small pieces, offering it to Lydia. "Eat slowly," she said, her eyes welling up. This recovered friendship was precious beyond measure. Lydia held Eleanor's hand, her voice still weak but firm. "Eleanor, thank you. Without you, I might have." "Don't say it," Eleanor interrupted, squeezing her hand tightly. "It's all over. We'll live well now." The door opened. Zhao and Ben, now using his real name, Inspector Lin, entered, both in plain clothes, smiling with relief. "Madam Finch, Miss Shaw, good news," Zhao said, placing a document on the bedside table. "Arthur Bennett, Alistair Finch, and all the other suspects have been formally charged by the Crown Prosecution Service. The evidence chain is complete, including illegal detention, grievous bodily harm, money laundering, and even involvement in a cold case murder from years ago. They will likely never see freedom again." Eleanor and Lydia exchanged glances, seeing relief and a touch of bittersweet emptiness in each other's eyes. Justice, though 6 years late, had finally arrived. "Inspector Lin, thank you," Eleanor said, genuinely grateful. Thinking of her earlier suspicion and fear of him, she felt a pang of remorse. Ben smiled, his expression clear and sincere. "Madam, it was my duty, and you were incredible. You kept your head in a crisis and helped us immensely." He looked at Lydia. "Miss Shaw, when you're stronger, we might need your testimony in court." Lydia nodded firmly. "I will. I'll tell everyone what they did, in my own words." After more conversation, Zhao and Ben said their goodbyes. The room fell silent again. Sunlight warmed them. Eleanor pushed Lydia's wheelchair to the window. In the garden below, lush greenery thrived. In the distance, the city's traffic flowed. Everything seemed normal, but for them, everything had changed. Alistair and Arthur Bennett had received their due punishment. The Finch group, restructured by the board, was slowly getting back on track. Eleanor's divorce from Alistair was finalized, and she had reclaimed everything that was hers. She and Lydia, two women who had clawed their way back from the brink of hell, decided to establish a foundation dedicated to helping victims of violence and illegal detention. The past 6 years had been a long, dark nightmare. But nightmares eventually end. "Eleanor," Lydia whispered, leaning against her, looking at the sunlight outside. Her voice was soft, yet full of strength. "Look, the sun has risen." Eleanor squeezed her hand. Tears finally falling, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. "Yes, Lydia, the sun has risen." The warm light dispelled all shadows, illuminating their new lives, full of infinite possibilities.